In 1984, Who's the Boss flipped the idea of family, work, and love into one of TV's most charming sitcoms. Tony Danza, Judith Light, Alyssa Milano, Danny Pintauro, and Katherine Helmond became familiar faces in millions of homes. But fame changed each of them in very different ways, bringing success, reinvention, private struggles, and losses fans still feel today. Let's look back at the cast of Who's the Boss, then and now. Al was one of the young guys from Tony's Brooklyn side of life. Casual, street smart, and a little rougher around the edges than Angela's polished suburban world. He brought that neighborhood flavor into the show without needing a big storyline. Al was played by Billy Gallo at the age of 22. Currently 59, he has kept a steady Hollywood career without becoming a loud celebrity name. He later appeared in Pretty Woman, Crash, Nipped at Blue, CSI Miami, and CSI NY, and also moved into producing. It is the kind of career where the face feels familiar even if the name takes a second. Al was a small role, but he helped add texture to Tony's world. Who's the Boss had that warm 80s sitcom feeling, where family, class, work, and neighborhood life all mixed together. Characters like Al made the world around the main house feel a little bigger and more real. Mona Robinson was Angela's outrageous mother, the glamorous, flirty grandmother who treated age like a minor inconvenience. She was the one with the sharp joke, the dating story, and the kind of confidence that could steal a whole scene. Mona was played by Katherine Helmond at the age of 55. Katherine Helmond passed away in 2019 at the age of 89 after complications from Alzheimer's disease. Before and after Who's the Boss, she stood out in Soap, Everybody Loves Raymond, and later voiced Lizzie in Cars. Her style was funny, odd, warm, and never boring. Mona gave the show its grown-up sparkle. Tony and Angela had the slow-burn tension, the kids had their coming-of-age stories, but Mona made the house unpredictable. She made aging, dating, and family chaos feel fun instead of awkward, which was a big part of her charm. Jonathan Bauer was Angela's sweet little boy. Bright, sensitive, and growing up right in the middle of Tony's loud Italian family energy and Angela's polished executive world. He was the kid who made the house feel softer and more innocent. Jonathan was played by Danny Pintauro at the age of 8. Currently 50, he has lived a very different life from the child star path people might have expected. After Who's the Boss, he stepped away from regular acting for years, later speaking openly about his personal life, health, and the pressure that came with growing up on television. Jonathan gave the show its gentle center. While Tony and Angela carried the romantic tension and Mona brought the chaos, Jonathan made the family feel real. He was funny, vulnerable, and easy to root for. The kind of sitcom kid who actually felt like a kid. Samantha Micelli was Tony's teenage daughter. Tough, cute, emotional, and always balancing Brooklyn attitude with life inside Angela's upscale home. She brought the show its coming-of-age spark, from school drama to dating problems to those very 80s growing-up moments. Samantha was played by Alyssa Milano at the age of 11. Today, at 53, she is still one of the most recognizable names from the show. After Who's the Boss, her career moved into Charmed, Melrose Place, film roles, activism, and a very public life that kept her in the spotlight long after her child star years ended. Samantha was a huge part of the show's appeal. Viewers watched her grow up in real time, which made her feel personal to a whole generation. She was not just Tony's daughter, she was the teen voice of the house, with all the attitude, heart, and confusion that came with it. Jeffrey Wells was one of the men who stepped into Angela's world with charm, confidence, and that polished 80s professional energy. He belonged to the grown-up dating side of Who's the Boss, where romance, career, and social status always seemed to bump into Tony's presence. Jeffrey was played by Robin Thomas at the age of 37. These days, at 77, he still has that familiar, "I've seen him somewhere" quality from decades of television work. His career later included roles in Murphy Brown, Queer as Folk, The Contender, and many guest spots where he often played sharp, confident, or slightly complicated men. Jeffrey helped create the romantic tension around Angela without needing to be the center of the show. Characters like him reminded viewers that Tony and Angela's chemistry was not happening in a vacuum. There were other people around, and that made the slow burn even more fun. Kathleen Sawyer was part of Angela's grown-up social world. Stylish, confident, and carrying that polished 80s energy that fit the show's dating and career side. She added another adult presence around the Bauer household, where romance and family life were always bumping into each other. Kathleen was played by Kate Vernon at the age of 29. Currently 65, she has built a career that moved far beyond sitcom guest roles. Many TV fans later knew her from Battlestar Galactica, where she played Ellen Tighe, a role with a much darker and stranger edge than anything in Who's the Boss. She also appeared across plenty of dramas and genre shows over the years. Kathleen fits that part of Who's the Boss, where the show reminded viewers Angela had a real adult life outside the kids and Tony's chaos. Characters like her gave the sitcom a little more social texture. Dating, friendship, jealousy, and all those awkward 80s living room moments. Dr. Doyle Ferguson was one of those respectable adult men who entered Angela's world with a professional, buttoned-up kind of confidence. He belonged to the show's polished suburban side, the kind of guy who looked right at home in dinner dates, office talk, and grown-up misunderstandings. Doyle was played by Jim Jansen at the age of 40. Today, at 81, he has had the kind of steady character actor career that classic TV is full of. He later appeared in shows like The Golden Girls, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, LA Law, and many other familiar series, usually bringing that dependable, adult-in-the-room presence. Doyle worked as part of the show's bigger romantic playground. Who's the Boss was always teasing the space between Tony and Angela, so every polished date or outside love interest made that tension a little more obvious. He helped make the slow burn feel like something viewers were supposed to notice. Jesse Nash was one of Samantha's teen world characters. Young, cute, and tied to that school and crush side of Who's the Boss. He brought a little teenage dating energy into the show, the kind that made Samantha's life feel bigger than just family dinners and Tony giving fatherly advice. Jesse was played by Scott Bloom at the age of 14. These days, at 53, he lives much more quietly than many former teen actors. After Who's the Boss, he continued acting for a while and came from a family connected to Hollywood, with his brother Brian Bloom also becoming a familiar actor. Scott later stepped away from the spotlight, so Jesse remains one of those nostalgic 80s TV faces. Jesse gave Samantha's story a bit of teen sitcom flavor. The show was about adults building a strange new family, but it also let the kids have crushes, awkward moments, and little dramas of their own. That balance helped Who's the Boss feel like a full household, not just a romance waiting to happen. Marcy Ferguson was part of Samantha's teen circle. Pretty, confident, and tied to that school life side of the show where crushes, friendships, and little rivalries mattered a lot. She brought in the kind of young guest energy that made Samantha's world feel more active outside the family home. Marcy was played by Nicole Eggert at the age of 13. Currently 54, she is still a familiar name to many viewers who grew up on 80s and 90s TV. After this role, she became much more widely known through Charles in Charge and Baywatch, then later lived through the harder side of childhood fame, including very public personal struggles and health challenges. Marcy belongs to that nostalgic teen TV lane, where one small role can still make people pause and say, "Wait, is that her?" Seeing Nicole Eggert here feels like spotting an early version of someone who would become a much bigger face on television a few years later. Mrs. Rossini was one of Tony's familiar neighborhood-style connections, warm, nosy, and carrying that old-school Italian-American sitcom flavor. She fit naturally around Tony's family background, the food, the loud opinions, and the kind of community energy that followed him into Angela's much quieter world. Mrs. Rossini was played by Rhoda Gemignani at the age of 46. These days, at 86, she is one of those character actresses whose face instantly feels familiar if you watched enough classic television. Her career included roles in Mary Hartman, General Hospital, Just Shoot Me, and many guest appearances where she brought warmth, humor, and a very specific neighborhood charm. Mrs. Rossini helped keep Tony's side of the story alive. The main house could be polished and suburban, but characters like her brought in a louder, warmer, more lived-in feeling. She made the show's family world feel less isolated and a little more like a real community. Jim Peterson was one of those grown-up authority figures who slipped into the story with a serious, slightly stiff energy. He belonged to the adult world around the main family, the kind of character who could make a scene feel more formal, more awkward, or more sitcom tense just by showing up. Jim was played by Earl Boen at the age of 43. Earl Boen passed away in 2023 at the age of 81 after battling lung cancer. His face and voice traveled much further than this role. Many viewers knew him as Dr. Silberman from the Terminator films, while animation and game fans heard him in projects like Kim Possible, World of Warcraft, and many voice roles. Jim was a smaller part, but Earl Boen had that useful character-actor quality. He could make even a brief appearance feel sharp and specific. Old sitcoms were full of faces like that, actors who dropped in, did the job cleanly, and left viewers thinking they had seen them somewhere before. Fran Tomopoulos was one of the loud, loving relatives from Tony's side of life. Warm, opinionated, and carrying that big family energy that could fill a room fast. She brought in the kind of old-school, extended family chaos that made Tony's world feel busy and familiar. Fran was played by Candace Azara at the age of 46. Currently 81, she has had a long career as a character actress with the kind of face classic TV viewers recognize quickly. Her work stretched through shows like Barney Miller, Rhoda, Caroline in the City, and films like In Her Shoes, usually bringing sharp timing and a very lived-in New York flavor. Fran added more family noise around Tony, and that mattered. The house could get polished and suburban, but characters like her pulled the story back toward loud relatives, strong opinions, and people who say exactly what they think. That contrast was part of the fun. Joe Tomopoulos was part of Tony's extended family circle, loud, familiar, and carrying that neighborhood relative energy that could turn a normal visit into a full sitcom moment. He belonged to the side of the show where family was never quiet and everyone had something to say. Joe was played by Vic Polizos at the age of 44. These days, at 78, he has spent decades popping up in film and television as a reliable character actor. His career moved through Seinfeld, The X-Files, The West Wing, Boston Legal, and plenty of guest roles where he often brought a tough, funny, or slightly rough-around-the-edges presence. Joe helped keep Tony's background from feeling like just a backstory. When relatives showed up, you could feel where Tony came from. The noise, the warmth, the opinions, and the family pressure. That kind of energy gave the sitcom a more personal, working-class flavor. Michael Bauer was Angela's ex-husband. Polished, successful, and part of the life she had before Tony changed the rhythm of the house. He brought in a more complicated adult layer, because his presence touched Angela, Jonathan, and the family history that still shaped them. Michael was played by James Naughton at the age of 39. Today, at 80, he remains a respected stage and screen actor with a career that went far beyond sitcom guest roles. He became especially known for theater work, winning Tony Awards, and also appeared in shows and films like Planet of the Apes, The Devil Wears Prada, and many television dramas. Michael added a little grown-up reality to the family setup. He was not just the ex for a quick joke. He reminded viewers that Angela already had a past, a marriage, and a child before the new household dynamic began. That made the comedy feel a bit more human. Andy was one of the younger side characters who helped bring more teen energy into the show's wider household world. He fit into those lighter school-age and social moments around the main family, where small guest roles could still make an episode feel busier and more alive. Andy was played by Doug Ballard at the age of 18. Currently 60, he has lived a much lower-profile life compared with many actors connected to 80s sitcom television. Public information about his later career is limited, so his role as Andy remains the main screen connection viewers are most likely to find when looking back at his work. Andy was not a major character, but roles like his helped keep the show from feeling too closed in. The main family carried the heart, but those younger side characters added movement, friends, and little outside stories that made the sitcom world feel more natural. Philly Fingers was one of those colorful side characters whose name alone already sounds like he walked in from a very different corner of Tony's world. He brought a more streetwise, slightly comic flavor into the story, the kind of character who could make the scene feel less polished and a little more old neighborhood. Philly Fingers was played by John Del Regno at the age of 38. Today, at 79, he is not a huge household celebrity, but he has the kind of character-actor presence that fits roles with personality. He appeared in film and television projects over the years, often playing colorful, rough-edged, or memorable side characters rather than smooth leading man types. Philly Fingers helped bring a little extra flavor to Tony's background. In a show built around two different worlds under one roof, characters like him reminded viewers that Tony did not come from Angela's polished suburban circle. He came with history, people, stories, and a whole lot of personality. Ted was one of those older guest characters who brought a little classic TV warmth into the household. He had that gentle, slightly old-fashioned presence that could make a scene feel softer without taking it over. Ted was played by Bill Irwin at the age of 69. Bill Irwin passed away in 2010 at the age of 96 from natural causes. His career stretched across decades, from early television to memorable later roles. Many viewers remember him from Seinfeld as Sid Fields, the cranky old man Jerry volunteers to visit, while film fans may also know him from Somewhere in Time. Ted fits that old sitcom tradition where a small role can still feel cozy and familiar. He was not there to shake up the whole show, but he added another human face to the world around the family. Sometimes that is enough to make an episode feel warmer. Robin Fraser was part of Samantha's teen world, young, pretty, and tied to the school-age stories that gave the show its coming-of-age side. She helped bring in that teenage social energy around crushes, friendships, and the small dramas that felt huge when you were young. Robin was played by Tanya Crowe at the age of 15. Currently 55, she is mostly remembered by TV fans from her years on Knots Landing, where she played Olivia Cunningham and grew up on screen in a very different kind of primetime world. After years in television, she stepped away from regular acting and has lived a quieter life outside the spotlight. Robin helped make Samantha's life feel bigger than the family living room. The adults had romance, work, and household chaos, but the teens needed their own little world too. Characters like Robin gave that side of the show more movement and a more believable 80s teen rhythm. Dr. Graham was one of the respectable adult figures who moved through the show's polished suburban world. He had that professional, calm, slightly formal presence that fit well in scenes about grown-up problems, dates, and family decisions. Dr. Graham was played by Jerry Hardin at the age of 62. Today, at 96, he remains one of those veteran character actors whose face instantly brings back decades of television. His career included The X-Files, Star Trek, The Next Generation, Big Trouble in Little China, and many other roles where he brought quiet authority and old-school screen presence. Dr. Graham added to the adult side of the story without needing a big spotlight. In a sitcom built around family, class, romance, and daily life, characters like him help the world feel properly populated. Not just one household, but a whole circle of people around it. Joey was the youngest kid character in the household mix. Cute, energetic, and there to bring that little child chaos into the later part of the show. He added a different family rhythm, the kind that comes with toys, noise, questions, and adults suddenly having to deal with a much smaller troublemaker. Joey was played by Josh Byrne at the age of 6. Currently 42, he has lived almost completely away from the spotlight as an adult. After his time as a child actor, he did not chase a long public Hollywood career, so Joey remains the role most viewers connect with him when looking back at 80s and early 90s sitcom TV. Joey gave the show a younger burst of energy when the original kids were growing up. Sitcom families often change as the children age, and characters like him helped keep that playful, slightly messy home feeling alive. He was small, but he added a fresh kid presence to the house. Joyce Columbus was one of those loud, stylish, instantly noticeable guest characters who could walk into a sitcom scene and change the whole temperature. With her big personality and unmistakable voice, she brought a splash of New York attitude that fit perfectly beside Tony's world. Joyce was played by Fran Drescher at the age of 28. These days, at 68, she is far more than a guest face from 80s TV. She became a sitcom icon with The Nanny, later worked as a producer, author, cancer survivor, and president of SAG-AFTRA, putting her right in the middle of one of Hollywood's biggest labor moments. Joyce is fun to look back on because you can already feel that Fran Drescher's spark. She had the timing, the voice, the confidence, and the larger-than-life energy before The Nanny made her a household name. Sometimes a guest role feels like a preview of something much bigger. Trish Curtis was one of the polished adult women who moved through the show's romantic and family side. She carried a mature, steady presence that fit the world of grown-up dating, old feelings, and complicated household emotions. Trish was played by Michael Learned at the age of 50. Today, at 87, she is still best remembered by many viewers as Olivia Walton from The Waltons, a role that made her one of classic television's most familiar mothers. Her career also continued through stage, television, and guest roles, giving her a long life beyond one beloved family drama. Trish brought a different kind of warmth into the story. She was not there for loud chaos or teen drama. She belonged to the adult emotional side, where past relationships and quiet choices mattered. Her presence gave the episode a softer, more old-school TV feeling. Carol was one of the adult women around Angela's world. Warm, sharp enough to hold her own, and part of that wider circle of friends, dates, and family complications that kept the household from feeling too closed off. She brought a relaxed, grown-up energy into the story. Carol was played by Randy Heller at the age of 42. Currently 79, she is still one of those faces TV fans recognize from very different generations. Long after her sitcom work, she became familiar again as Miss Blankenship on Mad Men, and many viewers also know her from The Karate Kid, where she played Daniel LaRusso's mother. Carol fits the show's comfortable 80s rhythm. Not every adult guest had to shake up the whole house. Some just added another layer of normal life around the main family. She helped make Angela's world feel social, lived in, and full of people with their own little histories. Tony Maselli was the heart of the show, a retired baseball player, single dad, and live-in housekeeper who brought Brooklyn warmth into Angela's polished Connecticut home. He cooked, cleaned, raised Samantha, teased Angela, and somehow made the whole role reversal feel natural. Tony was played by Tony Danza at the age of 33. Today, at 75, he still has that easy, old-school TV charm people remember from the 80s. After this role, his career moved through talk shows, stage work, teaching, and later screen appearances, but Tony Maselli stayed the character most people instantly connect with him. Tony made the sitcom click because he was funny without being slick. He had street smarts, a big heart, and that slightly messy dad energy that made the Bauer house feel less perfect. The joke was that he was the housekeeper, but the reason it worked was that he made the place feel like home. Angela Bauer was the successful advertising executive whose life looked perfectly organized until Tony Maselli walked in and changed the whole household. Smart, stylish, and tightly wound in that very 80s career woman way, Angela gave the show its modern edge. Angela was played by Judith Light at the age of 35. These days, at 77, she is still having one of the strongest second acts from the cast. After the sitcom, she earned major praise for stage work, Transparent, Ugly Betty, The Politician, and many other roles that showed just how much range she had beyond Angela's boardroom polish. Angela made the show more than a simple family comedy. She was a working mother, a boss, a romantic lead, and a woman learning how to let life get messier. Her chemistry with Tony gave the series its slow burn spark, but her own strength is what made the character last. The cast of Who's the Boss gave fans laughter, warmth, and a family story that still feels special decades later. Which cast member's transformation surprised you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and watch the next Then and Now video.